this event by FNF Madrid and the Migration Policy Group that we have created, or that we created 2 years ago, about the international impact of the war, migration in Eastern and Southern Europe. We have created this group to discuss migration policy issues and exchange best practices, also because we became aware that there's really a lack of dialogue between European liberal parties on a national level about migration policies. Sometimes we assume otherwise, that in Europe everything is working well and there is actually dialogue going on, but actually there isn't. And this is why we created this group with experts from Eastern Europe and Southern Europe and also Africa. And this makes it pretty unique, and I think the exchange between Eastern and Southern Europe in particular is very valuable, especially in a situation like this. I want to thank everybody who contributes to this event. Of course, to Vice Mayor Karolina Strodowska. Thank you for being with us. You have to leave a bit earlier, so you will give a keynote first and then answer maybe one question. We are very grateful that you take the time to be with us for this event. Thank you, Jan-Christoph Oetjen from Brussels, from the FDP caucus in the European Parliament. And also thank you, Sara Jimenez from Ciudadanos, our partner party. Buenas tardes, everyone. Hay muchos españoles aquí en la sala. Y obviously, también, thank you so much, Dr. Milos Hodgson, for moderating this and being a friend and an important partner for this group. Lamin Ba couldn't make it. He was actually at the airport and was denied boarding because of visa issues. So he cannot be with us today, but I'm sure you will all, or we will all make up for him as well. I think when we discuss migration this month, it becomes now pretty clear to everyone. I'm happy to say that many liberals have seen this coming before, that Putin, dictator Putin, has a very clear strategy abusing of migrants as a political pressure instrument to destabilize the European Union. We have seen this in Syria before. We see it now with Ukraine, and especially also with the upcoming food crisis in the Sahel area, which is having a disastrous impact in the area, and North Africa as well, by the way. And I think for liberals it's important to maintain a humanitarian approach, but also make sure that we don't become extortion by a dictator like Vladimir Putin. And it is, against this background, very important that we exchange best practices and learn from each other and find adequate solutions. So I'm very grateful for everybody who's here in the room with us this afternoon, and also for the panel, of course. Thank you so much, and I wish us a delightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you very much. Is it working? Yes, it is. Thank you very much, David. So this is the panel, The International Impact of the War, Migration in Eastern and Southern Europe. And so a very important topic and a very important connection, and something that David already mentioned, and I couldn't stress more, that the group, the task force that was created by FNF Madrid last year, that is supposed to connect, and it connects decision makers, policy makers, experts from Central and Eastern Europe, and also Southern Europe, Mediterranean region, is something very unique and something very special and something that we need very much. And we realize it, and I'm talking, from the Polish perspective. I'm from Poland, so from the Polish perspective, last year when we were invited for the first event of the group, which was an extremely interesting study visit in Spain, and last year we had this wave of migration provoked by another dictator, Lukashenko, from Belarus. And we thought, okay, Poland is seeing for the first time migration like that, a wave of migration like that. For the first time we saw acts like pushbacks, something that my country had not seen before. And we thought it's so important to learn from our colleagues because, again, as David said, there is not enough exchange of information and there is not enough understanding between our regions. So this is why I find it extremely important, because without this understanding, it's very hard for us to be Europeans. It's very hard for us to feel this feeling of solidarity. And we could see it in last years in Europe, these difficulties in communication, these difficulties in common understanding. You all remember probably the year 2015, when the war in the Middle East, war in Syria, provoked a migration crisis that shaped the shaped politics in Europe, changed governments, and provoked a wave of populism, of right-wing populism, of Euroscepticism, unknown in Europe for many years. And yeah, as I said, it changed governments, including the government in Poland, in Hungary, because we had these leaders, these politicians who were using the crisis to polarize the society, who were using hate speech against people coming to Europe to build their campaigns on that. And it was back then it looked like Eastern Europe and its leaders and its new leaders did not understand the crisis at all, did not understand the migration crisis as something global, as something European. They saw it as something regional or even more sub-regional, something that only Southern European nations and Western European politicians, governments had to take care of, had to deal with. And on the other side, Western Europe, Southern Europe, Northern Europe looked at Eastern Europe as the region that is, heartless, soulless, that cannot, it's selfish, is incapable of any acts of solidarity. So there was lack of understanding. And then now we have year 2022, and February 24th, the terrible invasion, Russian invasion in Ukraine started, and the terrible war that cost so many lives of people started. And again, I think many capital cities, governments, and also societies from Northern, Southern, and Western Europe look at East, look at Poland as, and they don't understand what's happening. How come Polish people, but it's not only about Polish people, it's about Romanian people, Hungarian people, Slovak people, open their hearts, open their homes for refugees. And this is something that, again, in the West, there are movements, there are politicians who believe maybe we're doing too much now, like maybe we shouldn't do so much for the Ukraine. So there is, again, lack of understanding. And this is the main topic, I think, of this panel. And this is the big questions we're going to ask ourselves here from these different perspectives. Is about, is European solidarity in migration possible? Is common approach possible? What do we have to do as Europeans to understand our points of view, our sensitivities, our interests also? And what is the role of European institutions here? And we'll try to answer these big questions in this panel. And again, we have three really fantastic panels here. So thank you so much for joining the panel once again. Sara Jimenez, member of the Parliament, Spanish Parliament from Ciudadanos. Karolina Zdrodowska, Deputy Mayor of Warsaw from the Polish Liberal Party Nowoczesna. And Jan Krzysztof Ilchen, member of the European Parliament, FDP Renew Group. So thank you so much for joining us. And as it was said before, we'd like to give the floor for the keynote speech, for the introduction remarks to Karolina, because she will have to leave early. So Karolina, the floor is yours, and I'm sure that people are very much interested what is happening in Poland, from the Polish perspective, but also from your perspective as a deputy mayor who is co-responsible of managing the crisis that Poland is seeing right now. Karolina, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here. I'm really glad that I can share some reflections about the situation in Poland, mostly the situation in Warsaw, which is my main concern. Yesterday, it was the 1st of June, the International Children's Day. And when parents put their children to bed, when they are waiting until they fall asleep, the main concern is if they are safe in their beds, if they are safe in their homes. And I have to say that right now, Warsaw became the safe home for more or less 100,000 Ukrainian children. And I have to say that I'm very proud of, as a citizen of my city, that we made it possible. And it was a joint work of NGOs, of business, of municipalities, cities, and of the government. Since the war started, more than 3.5 million Ukrainians crossed the Polish-Ukrainian border. Many of them moved to Warsaw, the estimates say that it's around 750,000 people who came to Warsaw. Some of them stayed for a few days, some of them stayed for a few weeks and then moved further. But approximately 300,000 stayed in our city, and for a longer or shorter time, they will become our citizens. What it means for the city, because to make this picture maybe more clear, it means that we have 15% more inhabitants in the city. We have to provide service for 15% more people than it was designed for. This is a huge, this is a very big problem for us, not only in terms of how to design the system, but also how to finance the system. Because of course we are promised the money, but the money will come later or not. The money from the government, of course. So 15% more of citizens and 8% more of children in the kindergartens, 10% more of children in the primary schools. And many people who were using our Warsaw residence space, like places which we designed in order to give shelter for a few nights, for a longer time. Right now, we know that more or less more than 100,000 people used our rooms, let's say our beds, provided by the city from day to day, at least for one night. Right now, the situation is, I can say, under control. We have more or less 2,000 people in our shelters, but we know that the situation can change. We have to be ready for different scenarios, for different variants, not only for different scenarios in the Ukraine, because, of course, we all know that we don't know, yes, what will happen in future, but also for different scenarios in our society, because more than 100,000 people, again, 100,000, this is a number which is for everything. More than 100,000 people of Warsaw took refugees to their houses, to their apartment, to their properties. And they did not know for how long their guests will stay with them, but definitely most of them did not expect that it will be so long. Because it's over 3 months and we can see that the war is still not, it doesn't look that it will come to an end. So we have to also be ready that some of those people who are living with Warsaw families will go back to the city residential points and use our points again. And of course, I just mentioned a few areas, but we have to provide healthcare, education, public transport, free public transport. We have to collect waste. We have to support everyone with water. And this all costs hundreds of millions of zlotys. And of course, it will cost more. What we need right now is and this is what we appeal to the Polish government, but also to the European institutions, is a clear strategy, a clear system for the help in the following weeks, months, and probably years. Because the consequences of this conflict will be visible for a much longer time. And this is mostly visible in the labor market. A part of my responsibility in the city is the labor market. So we started thinking about how to make it easier, how to make it possible for those refugees to find a job, to become economically independent, not to be dependent on the social care. We started thinking about this at the very beginning. We opened a new point devoted for the Ukrainian people of the employment office, of the labor office in Warsaw. It started working 2 weeks after the war broke out, which is really, really fast. And right now we have almost 3,000 people registered. This is not a big number comparing to the number of Ukrainians who are in Warsaw, but this is important because it gives us a closer look at who they are. Because in this point we can collect information, we can talk to those people, ask them about their plans for the future, ask them about their problems. And the picture of those people is great, I have to say. These are one thing is that these are, of course, mostly women. 95% are women, but they are very well educated. 57% of them have higher education. 37% of them have high school education. And they represent different professions. These are architects, graphic designers, accountants, nurses, doctors, teachers, everyone. Our unemployment rate in Poland is quite low, so we could say, great, let's take them, let's just fill our empty spaces, the business will be happy and they will just use their skills, and let's use it as an opportunity to develop. But the problem is that one thing is that they don't know the language. About 35% of them can speak Polish or English, and this is what they declare. Usually the declarations are much more optimistic than the reality. They don't have the nostrifications, they don't have their diplomas. Very often they don't have any documents with them. They only came with one suitcase. And of course, another problem is that the jobs available in Warsaw, in Poland, are not really the jobs for women. Sometimes they are really not the jobs for women because there are some regulations which don't allow women to take jobs in construction, for example. So in places where we have huge problems with finding employees after Ukrainian men went back to their country. But sometimes also these are mental problems. This is the attitude to work in a different profession that they were used to work in. For example, we can take an accountant. We can say numbers are the same, yes, in every country. She could work in our country as an accountant, but the programs, the systems in which we are working are totally different. They don't know them, and of course, they don't know the taxation law. To be honest, Polish people also don't understand our taxation law, so this is not maybe, but still, I can't imagine being a foreigner and trying to understand it. But also, like we have 40% now of Ukrainian people who are looking for a job through our labor office. But these are totally different clients than we used to have in the city of Warsaw, because these are people who are extremely motivated, very hardworking. They are ready to take any job just to become independent. And beside what we are doing in the labor office, we are also trying to help them besides the city system. So we are providing rooms and computers, printers, support for daycare for their children, so that, for example, they can use our city spaces, work online, continue their work online. Many of them are still working for Ukrainian companies, or find a job without entering the city system. So we help with writing CVs, we provide volunteers who can help look through the job offers on commercial website, which is not easy, even for a person from Poland. Finding a job is a bit complicated, but again, someone from abroad, very often in crisis, very often with extremely bad psychological problem after what they went through. This is all difficult. And all in all, the last data says that since the start of the war, 33,000 of people from the Ukraine found a legal job in Warsaw. And I think that this is a very high number, and it makes us optimistic about the future. But of course, the future, we don't know what's going to happen. And this is also one of the main problems. When we talk to those people, to the refugees, they don't know if they will stay here for 2 weeks, for a month, or for years. And we have to decide how much money to invest in, for example, training, in how money to invest in their future job positions. And the same problem is on the side of the business, because the business is looking for employees, but they don't know how much money they can put into this so that they don't stay with nothing if all the employees go to the Ukraine. At the same time, we must have in mind that because we are, of course, in touch with the Ukrainian authorities, they appeal to us not to drain Ukraine from talents, from the best students, the best employees, and from the best educated people. Because also they are worried that children who use our education will be assimilated, not integrated, but assimilated with the Polish society, and that they will lose this core of what is the future of Ukraine. And to, because Miłosz, you mentioned like what we can expect from the government, what we can expect from the European institutions. As I said at the beginning, of course, money is the issue. I mean, for Warsaw, money is the issue, because we already took a lot of actions, and we know that we will have to undertake a lot more in future, and that this is a very long process. And at the same time, we have this discussion between our government and the European Commission about the reconstruction fund. So Poland is waiting for money, but at the same time we understand Ursula von der Leyen, who is saying that first we have to implement, the government needs to implement some changes in the law so that the constitutional law in Poland is not violated. Unfortunately, the populistic government is putting all the blame on opposition, and they say if you don't vote together with us on something that is not really fixing the violation of constitutional law in Poland, you are responsible for not receiving those funds. So we have this kind of paradox that because of this great solidarity which my city showed to the refugees, and because we were really fighting for human rights, and I not as a system, but like every individual was doing this on his own, now we are in a way punished with this threat that these unconstitutional regulations in the judiciary system in Poland will be accepted because we need the money. So once again, we need, for all the expenses we have, we need money, but more than ever before, in the last few decades, we need money, but also we need the rule of law, and we need your European support in fighting with discrimination in Poland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Karolina. I think the message is very clear, what we need. And you said money, you said the rule of law. Without the rule of law, nothing will work in a country like ours. And also, I think it's very important that you stressed that the government that we're having, which is illiberal, populist, they're really good in using situations like war and emergencies to fight for
They're lucky, I have to say. Always when they are going down, something happens.
Yeah.
And they go up.
And if nothing happens, they create their own opportunities like abortion ban and this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
But definitely we need a clear strategy. I think this is very important. And Poland works right now without any clear strategy. It's the people, it's the NGOs, and it's the local authorities that have strategies. And before you leave us, would like to ask you an additional question. Like, do you think this experience we're all going through right now will change something in the Polish attitude towards migration in general? Because as I started, people still remember 2015 and still remember how the voice from Poland, the official Polish voice, was very much anti-refugees, anti-migration, the official one. And And now the situation with the guests from Ukraine. We like to call people coming from Ukraine guests, not refugees really. So do you think the situation with guests from Ukraine, will it change the attitude of Polish people about other migrants?
I think that it does. I mean, I have to say that I'm quite optimistic about it, and not without a reason, because we were very worried at the beginning of this conflict that because of so much money and so much services put to the Ukrainians, we were very worried that the level of services will go down for the other citizens. And that this not only is in a way unfair because they deserve the equal level of services, but also that it might cause some conflicts between Ukrainians and Polish people. We were observing very closely the situation when Ukrainians could use the public transport for free. So, of course, we were monitoring every problem when this was commented in a negative way, for example, in the media, although there were really minor examples of this. Also, there was a moment when the government passed a law that Ukrainians can have medical treatment before Polish people. So, in a way, we have huge queues for the medical help in Poland. So, Polish people were pushed out of the queue so that Ukrainians could be treated. This was just for a short time, but also we were worried that this will cause something bad in the society. We decided that we have to be prepared for some conflicts, so we created a program and a campaign which is teaching about the diversity, about the Ukrainians, and we were thinking that if something happens, then we are ready. And so far, nothing happened. For the 3 months, there was no big conflict within the society. We, of course, again, I'm always worried. So I'm worried about September and the beginning of the school year, because, of course, everyone is very fragile, careful about the level of education of their children. So we will see how this goes. But so far, the society reacted great in the first step and also in the second step. How this will, if this will have some impact on our, as a society, attitude towards other minorities, I don't know, but I am optimistic. And I think that this is what happened now is teaching us how the society can react, but also teaching the society how, like, from each other.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy that you're optimistic. It's great to have an optimist in the town hall. Thank you. And and a lot about Poland, because this is a very hot topic. But again, we're going to talk about southern and eastern. It's a dialogue. So Sara, my question is very simple. What is the current migratory situation in Spain? Like, it was a topic. We were all discussing it for years, but now it's more quiet about it because there are other issues. So what is the situation now in Spain?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to participate in this convention. Thank you, David and Alde, because I think the topic, the migration, is a principal topic nowadays in daily agenda of migration, receiving countries as Spain, as well the European Union, particularly after war initiatives with Ukraine by Putin. I would like to share with you. I work in the parliament with Ciudadanos Liberal Party in Spain, and I deal in social equality and migration areas. And it's important for me, I am a Roma woman, to defend the rights of my people in the parliament. In Spain, the situation is different, and I would like to share with you what is the situation in Canarias, Melilla and Ceuta, because I think it's a good example. Migration is one of the key political issues in Spain, give our country in the order of European Union, and it's entry point for migrants going to final destination. Moreover, our proximity to Africa and our traditional ties with Latin American countries have made our countries experience several migration crises in last 2 decades, mainly in Canarias Island and in the Spanish cities Ceuta and Melilla in the north of Africa. In this sense, in 2020, a record of number 18,000 migrants arrived in the Canary Islands, reaching 2,000, migrants to go in 1 day. In a weekend, which implied in an increase of 300% compared to previous years. Also, in May last year, in just a few days, more than 9,000 migrants entered our borders in Ceuta and Melilla, coming from Morocco. The last example of the constant migration crisis we have in Spain happened 2 months ago, when more than 2,000 migrants jumped over the fence Melilla with the use of violence. Lastly, it's necessary to mention how being an immigration receiving countries entails enormous challenges from an economical, institutional, and from humanitarian point of view. On the one hand, our security and border control forces have traditionally been understaffed and underprepared to deal with the significant pressure for the migration flows and the need the host then in center until personal situation is resolved in the Canary Islands and the cities of Ceuta and Melilla. On the other hand, one of the main challenges is how to include all these migrants in our society to benefit of both the migrant and receiving country. In this connection, it is interesting to highlight how 75% of migrants still do manual or low qualification jobs, even when they hold university degrees. Despite all that truth, in Spanish society has traditionally welcomed migrants, including non-Spanish speakers. In fact, we have managed to build a successful inclusion in model in Ceuta and Melilla, 2 Spanish cities localized in the north of Africa that format to 500 years experience peaceful coexistence of Christians, Muslims, and Jews even today. Moreover, such coexistence is not based on ghettos of exclusion, but rather on a true feeling of neighborhood. You live in an apartment building, on door to door, there are migrants from different religion, origin, and skin color living peaceful with you. I think it's important to have the balance to the situation, to the security, and to complete the law or the rule to the migrant population and the inclusion of the society. When you explain about what is the position in the society, and I think it's in Europe, in some cases I think the migrant people have a problem to the discrimination. In Spain, it's a problem, the discrimination, when the people need to access to employment, when need to know access to the housing, need to access to use the service, to education. And I think it's a global problem to inclusion of the migration in the society, in the Europe society. I think it's important, the sensibilization, and in this side, I think it's dangerous the high level of the xenophobia, the political discourse speech in Spain and in other countries, and xenophobic discrimination and stigmatization the migrant community. In Ciudadanos, Spain have a specific proposal. I would like to share what is the proposal to do values. I think it's important, the solidarity and the responsibility. The solidarity because our migrants policy has to be considered with our liberal democratic values that put human dignity in the first place. and responsibility, because if we are not able to regulate those migration flows, we risk giving by those populistic, radical, and xenophobic that want our society broken and confronted with one another. Therefore, our responsibility is to follow the law and our social cohesion. In the project to the Ciudadanos proposal, has the first pillar in the prevention of migration in countries and origin and transit. I think is very important. We have to continue working with countries of origin of transit by making use of bilateral agreements. Like Spain, we have different agreements with Mauritania, Morocco, or Senegal. Or on our end, we provide technical support to the security forces, so they are capable of managing migration flow in a sustainable way. On their end, authority in these countries will contain unregulated flows to avoid an excessive pressure up in Europe. As an example before, other agreements on economic cooperation on trade should be made conditional to the compliance with these migration deeds. The second point I think is important, effectively and legal return policy. If we want a successful, sustainable migration system, then we need to make sure migrants whose situation is not compliant with the law return to their countries. To this connection, it is important to make sure that decision about who qualifies as refugee or migrant in a regular situation does not take forever, because creates insecurity, anxiety on migrants. We should to avoid legal limbos. The third pillar is necessary to speed up procedures for inclusion. If someone is willing and ready to become part of our society, we have to speed up procedures for inclusion, because it could avoid social problems in the future, such as ghettos, exclusion, radicalization. In Ciudadanos, we support the creation to welcome package that will consist of language, allowing for Spain lessons, employment with a specific internship scheme for refugees and legal migrants, clear rules and time frames for bureaucrats to obtain resident status, familiar reunification, where Spain is already a leader, recognition of studies and professional experience obtained by migrants in their countries, specialized those related to the highly demanding jobs. And the other pillar is to promote the attraction of killer skilled migrants. We should recognize the value of talent, no matter where is they come from. Following that proposal, we suggest some measure in order to attract highly skilled migration. It's important to retain the talent of these students who come to Spain and want to stay here to live and work. Give points to migrants if they complete the secondary school, hold the master's degree or PhD, know language, have professional experience. And I think it's important other position. As already mentioned, as liberal, we have belief in the migration. We believe that the developed countries welfare system benefit from receiving people with the different backgrounds and culture, willing to make more enriched societies with their contribution. Moreover, in Spain, there is a great deal of demanding jobs that are mainly performed by migrants, as a home care help, housekeeping service, hotel staff, farm workers, and so on. We in Ciudadanos defend the need of welcoming these migrants, as well as guaranteeing their laboral rights, which is very important, your standard of dignity. And the lastly pillar I explained you is to give the European and stronger rule. It's our understanding in Ciudadanos that we should keep working with the countries of origin and transit by make use of bilateral agreements with the European Union can set the general framework for cooperation. In addition to that, we should explore the option of building asylum facilities with UE money in those origin and transit regions, so that those who escape persecution and war are not forced to risk their lives in dangerous trip. Once the application is resolved, the applicant is considered to be a refugee, such as status should be recognized all across the Europe. It's necessary all recognition this situation. In order to that, we need a common asylum rules and more technical and economical support in the line with the new migration path. I think it's necessary to promote this, and in the situation in Spain in this moment, Ukrainian position. In Spain, there are a specific collaboration to the Inclusion Ministry and the different NGOs to do the inclusion of the Ukrainian migrants. But I would like to share one position is different to Caroline. I think the people like to, in the first time, like to solidarity with the Ukrainian people, but the situation with the other type of the migration is refuse. I think it's the realistic position. In some cases, it's a good position with the Ukrainian war, but in the other case, the refuse with the migrants is very important, and I would like to share with us what is the situation of the Roma Ukrainian in the European situation. I have a dangerous news about the Roma people in Ukraine have problems to the discrimination and to refuse in the European countries, and have to problem to discrimination to humanitarian help. I would like to have these opinions with you, because the difference to the treatment, the different treatment to the migrants, the different treatment to the people, if you are one position or the other position, is the construction to go to Europe? Is solidarity to Europe? I don't know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, so much. And we've already discussed this topic a bit yesterday about this intersectional discrimination, and we definitely think it's something that, together with FNF, we should look at it, because the topic that Sarah just mentioned, that she just finished her intervention with, is extremely important, and we see it in, I think, all the countries, about different treatment of different migrants, including Ukrainian migrants, including different treatments of migrants who are coming from refugees, who are coming from Ukraine and look different. They don't look like many people would expect a person from Ukraine to look like, and this is a big topic, and I definitely think we should continue this conversation. And excuse me, but before I ask my question to and Christoph, who was nodding when Sarah was talking about the European Union, so I think we could definitely continue some of the issues there. I would like to say one thing. I will not abuse my position as a moderator, and I will definitely open the floor after one or maximum two questions to the panelists. So please, if you have any questions, you will have the time to ask them, and if you still don't, please think about the questions to the panel, because this is a unique opportunity. But before I ask you the first question about Europe, I would like to ask you actually about the question about Germany, because the Germany and the new German government is something widely commented, and I think very critically commented in German press, but also in European press after February 24th and after the many reactions of the government in Berlin. So you are the Liberals, FDP, you are part of the coalition. So my question is what do you as Liberals, what do you bring in the discussion about migration in Germany?
Well, honestly, the discussion about migration of Ukrainians in Germany is there's no major topic, no disagreement in the government, but there's disagreement on other issues. I mean, the German government is not quick enough. The stance that the government takes is not strong enough. Even the decision about the delivery of arms does take ages, and when the decision is taken, it's not proceeded. So, I mean, we're quite angry about the stance, especially of the Social Democrats, but this is not only an FDP issue, it's the FDP and the Greens in the coalition government that are trying to push the Chancellor, who is in a Merkel style, waiting and trying to look where to go, but yeah, let's say like this, he's not too hasty, but he's too, he's too slow, and this is for us a problem. But we're in a government and we're in a coalition, so we're urging them and we're pushing them, and we're confident that the right decisions will be taken. And you see that there are steps forward. I mean, if you look at the beginning of this war, especially the Social Democrats had very strong and tight links to Russia. And by the way, this is the case in several countries in Europe, where government people had tight links to Russia, and it took time to undo these links, but we're making progress. Too little, too small, perhaps, but we're making progress.
Thank you. And definitely, we would like to use your knowledge from the European Parliament and about Europe. So I found an article that was signed or co-signed by you, and the title was "Europe's Migration is Broken. Renew has a Plan." What is this plan of the Renew?
Well, at the beginning of the mandate, I start differently. You remember liberals being united on migration? We did this. We did this in 2019 after the elections. We did a very thorough work on how should Renew, as the liberal group in the European Parliament, and we still always tell that it's the liberal group in the European Parliament because it is the liberal group in the European Parliament. How should Renew look at this issue? And in the past, there were liberals voting on that side and liberals voting on the other side, and they were all part of ALDE, but not agreeing on migration. And what we did is to discuss the issue, to see where are the problems for certain countries, to see what is our common approach on migration. And I mean, as liberals, we have a certain stance on how to deal with people coming from other countries. This is, first of all, when there are people fleeing or coming to Europe. The first thing, and I'm happy that you said this, is that we have a humanitarian approach. I mean, human dignity comes first. If there's somebody coming who needs help, we help. This is the first thing to do. And on the other hand, sure, there's the question of rule of law, that we cannot say everybody can come and the world is, we're all happy together, and this is, the world is not like this, and that's for sure. So we need to channel migration, to organize migration, and the common denominator in the group was that we want, on the one hand, solidarity within the European Union between the different member states, and we're always looking to the south and looking to Spain, to Italy, to Greece, to Cyprus, to Malta, which are the countries of first arrival in the past. This has changed now with the war in Ukraine, but we always looked at them. And in the past, a lot of European countries said, they are dealing with it, it's not our problem. Germany said this, by the way, as well, before 2015, 2016, and 2015, 2016, when all the Syrians came, we said, hey, Europe, help us, we're alone with this issue. Well, it's a self-made problem, perhaps, but this is on another topic. So the common denominator was that we should organize this, and if we want to organize migration to Europe, we have to look at legal pathways to Europe. And there should be legal pathways for people in need of help, so refugees, especially the most vulnerable, that cannot afford or are able personally, physically, to do this journey to Europe, that cannot afford paying a boat, even if they risk to die in the Mediterranean Sea, and there are still too many people dying in the Mediterranean Sea. I think we all agree on this. So we should help the most vulnerable via legal pathways for migrants that are in need of help. And we should create legal pathways as well for people that are looking for a job. And I mean, it's normal. Migration is normal because there are always people striving for a better life. I always tell my ancestors were going to the US at the end of the 19th century. But the second-born, third-born, fourth-born boys on the farm of my family, they had no opportunity in their home country, so they went to America, and they migrated. And today, people are migrating to Europe because they are looking for better opportunities for themselves. They are looking for a better life, for safety. It's very important, what Carolina said. And we should, in a way, deal with this. Today, they are saying, I need asylum, because there are no legal pathways to the labor market. And so they say they claim asylum, and we know that very often they have no need for asylum. There are cases where there is a need for asylum, and then they should have asylum, that's for sure. But there are a lot of cases where they're just looking for a better life, and this is nothing negative. This is something positive from my point of view. I'm a liberal, so people striving for a better life. This makes our society move, and we as Renew Europe, we propose to accompany this with a European program. The problem is that the labor market issues are not European issues, that are national issues. So that's good. That's why it's important to discuss them here. So what we are proposing is that the European Union creates a talent pool. This is one of the proposals that is picked up by the Commission as well, only by communication at the moment, but I think that there is something to come up. That we create a talent pool, and then the member states, they say, we need people to work in Spain, for example, and we need people that work in agriculture or in, I don't know, in tourism, doing jobs low qualified, and we need people working on IT issues, etc., etc. And we have a quota of 10,000 people for this and 5,000 people for this. And in Germany, for example, in my home region, we are looking for craftsmen, and we are looking for apprentices that are young, that even don't know how to build a house, but they can learn it. And we are in lack of young people in Germany. So perhaps Germany could say we need 50,000 young people, untrained people, that we train in Germany. And so every country can say we need a lot of people, or we don't need people. They can say we need high-skilled people, or we need low-skilled people, or a mix, or I don't know. And then people from other countries, they can apply for this, because honestly, somebody coming from I don't know, Côte d'Ivoire, searching for a job in Europe, I don't think, well, he speaks French or she speaks French, so she could go to France or Belgium. But honestly, I don't think that the person cares if if the person is working in the Netherlands or in Germany. They're looking for a job. I mean, this is the issue. So so people could apply for this, and we are hoping that by creating those legal pathways, the persons that are going to Europe claiming asylum without having a reason to claim asylum, because they hope coming to being able to go to the labor market, that this number diminishes. Then the other topic is solidarity. I just want to say something on this because this is an important topic. I don't think that we can leave the Mediterranean countries alone with this issue. So we need a kind of system in Europe where other countries pick up those migrants that are not in the first line. What did not work in the past was saying that every country has to take a certain share. I would go for that, personally, but we know that in Council this has no majority. There are a lot of member states who do not accept this. I think we Liberals should go for this, but if we are realistic, we know that this has no majority. So we need a system where member states in a certain way do a solidarity with those countries, perhaps even without picking up people, but it does not work if no country picks up people. So we need a system where there are still countries taking migrants from the south. And by the way, the European Union proposed, and member states proposed, to pick up migrants from the east, Ukrainians, from Poland, from Hungary, from Slovakia, but the governments did not apply for this. They don't want this, especially Poland, and I think it's very impressive what Carolina told us. I had the hope that with this crisis, the Polish government would say, okay, we understand, we cannot go alone for in this endeavor. We need the help of our European friends. By the way, help and not only money. Is not only money. And the European Union proposed help from the Asylum Agency, from Frontex in order to manage the borders, and all this stuff. But the government refuses it. They don't want European help. They want European money, but they don't want European help. And from my point of view, this is something toxic, because it's a stance of the government, because they don't want to give in on other issues concerning migration. And so we have still the situation in the European Council that there's no movement on migration issues at the moment. I just want to, because we're here to exchange experiences as well, I want to share with you one experience, because I was, when Carolina told us about the Polish families opening their houses and their hearts for Ukrainian refugees. I want to share with you an experience we've had in Germany, where a lot of people helped Syrian refugees in 2015, 2016, with administrative issues, bringing them to the doctors, etc., etc. There were a lot of people in the society helping, not wanting money for this. It's not the municipalities, were people just saying, I want to help. You can do this for a certain time, but after a certain time, it's too hard. We have to be honest for this. It's too hard for the families to have someone. And imagine you have someone coming to your house, to your home, for 1 week, okay. For 2 weeks, okay. For 4 weeks. For 2 months, 3 months. I mean, even it's somebody from your family, or even, well, this might be worse, but but I mean, imagine somebody living in your house with you all the time. You can do this for a certain time, but it's not possible forever. So I think that via the urgency mechanisms that we have in the European Union, we should help the municipalities directly as European Union, because it's the municipalities in Poland and in the other countries doing the job at the moment. And we have to find a way to bypass in a way the Polish government, because I mean, the recovery fund is another issue. We can discuss perhaps later. But I mean, for the management of the migration issues, we have to in a way try to find direct financing. What the European Union will not finance, by the way, to be very clear as well, is schooling. I mean, this is not in our remit. We can help with housing of refugees or even giving food to refugees, administrating them, all this. But there are limits as well. I mean, we're in a liberal party, so we're always talking about who takes care of what, and we should be very clear on this. And there are issues where the European Union does not take care of. And yeah, but I think what is important is that we support those who are in direct contact and who help directly the refugees from Ukraine. And I know that a lot of refugees, they don't want to go to other countries neither, because they want to stay close to Ukraine, because they hope going back as quick as possible, and they hope being close to the others of their family. Well, all in all, on political matters, no movement on the European Union on migration issues, unfortunately, but we try to push. And I think that we have to discuss about alternative ways on how we can deliver a better practice, a better political approach on migration. And the group that has been launched by FNF Madrid helps a lot with this. I think it's a good way to exchange and to find common liberal solutions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'm really happy to hear that the liberal stance is possible, and we are doing it step by step, but we are going there. And so Renew has a plan, and we know this plan better now. And again, I don't want to abuse my position, so I think now is the time to open the floor. Oh yes, please. We have already first question. We do not have a microphone, so just please.
Okay, I have a loud voice.
Beautiful.
Irina van Wiese, I'm a member of the UK Liberal Democrats, former vice chair of the Human Rights Subcommittee in the European Parliament. And by the way, I did host refugees for almost 4 years, one of them for more than 2 years, an Ethiopian woman. And I have to say it was actually a very good experience overall, and I do recommend it for anybody who is considering it. And I think refugee issues are a human rights issue. I should say migration issues, because I think what we're seeing is that the difference between refugees and migrants is becoming more and more difficult to maintain in light of environmental catastrophes, which bring along hunger and the question whether you're fleeing war or hunger or floods. In the end, is going to be a difficult one morally to resolve. One comment on the striking difference between the contributions we heard from Carolina and from Sarah. And I do think we have to address this, and you were hinting at it. There are at the moment two types of migrants. They're the good ones, and then there are the bad ones. The good ones are not only those who look like us and think like us and have the same religion and color of skin, although surely that must be one of the discriminatory elements. But they're also the ones where we understand why they flee. It's a clear black and white conflict. You could say so was Afghanistan, Syria to a lesser extent, but very clearly in Ukraine you have people who are very clearly victims here. And the second thing is, at least at the beginning, it looks like, this is temporary, they're going back. And I'm afraid I don't quite share Carolina's optimism, because they are not in a position, many of them are not in a position to go back. And we've only just seen the beginning of the cost of living crisis all over Europe. In my own country, the UK, and elsewhere, people are already, ordinary people, particularly those with least money, are suffering consequences which are exacerbated by the Ukraine crisis, consequences of global energy crisis. And that is not going to get better. It's going to get worse. How long is Europe going to hold together? How long is the solidarity, not only of governments, but also of people, of civil society, going to last when it really becomes a question of resource allocation? When it really comes down to, do I feed my own kids, or do I feed those who are coming from elsewhere? And sadly, that is going to be the choice for a number of people, maybe not directly, but indirectly. So I think this is not a problem that's going to go away. I think Ukrainians are now the good ones, but for how long? And it's also quite clear that this cannot be solved by one country, but also not by one region, and not by Europe alone. Because if we don't address the climate catastrophe, for example, you know, the numbers of refugees that we have today are going to be dwarfed in 2 or 5 years' time. And if we don't have a system to deal with this, and if we don't have a system to also address the causes for this global crisis, then I'm afraid all of the Dublin reforms, etc., are not going to are just going to be a plaster, a sticking plaster. Sorry, that was a long contribution and not a question at all.
I mean, it was a very important comment. Thank you so much. Would you like to comment on?
Well, I agree with Irina, and thank you for drawing the bigger picture. I agree with you that that we have clearly a difference in the treatment of refugees if they come from Ukraine. But even if they come from Ukraine, if they are black, and we had a lot of African students in Ukraine that fled the war, and they fled the war like all the other Ukrainians, but the treatment was a different one. And we see in countries of the European Union a different treatment of refugees from Ukraine compared to other refugees. So I agree with you that I mean, we as liberals, we do not do those differences, but the people do it in a certain way, and the countries, the governments do it, and even the municipalities do it sometimes. Perhaps sometimes even without willing to do it, but it's a kind of, well, sliding process. I think. I don't know, but I think. How will be the solidarity inside the European Union? I don't know. But I agree with you that clearly the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, has consequences on multiple regions in the world, and we don't recognize at the moment still the consequences that all this has in Africa. On the food price, and hunger will be installed. This is for sure. You know that most of the people that are those suffering for hunger don't have the money to come to Europe. They will stay in those regions, and they will destabilize in a certain way those societies, those countries, and the neighboring countries. So. I think that at the moment we cannot oversee at all the consequences of this war on our planet, on the world. And everything I can say is that we as liberals, I think that we have it's our force that we are optimistic, and that we have a positive look on the future, and that we try to fix problems that occur. And that I think that's the only thing we can do. And I think with all the achievements that we have in the European Union since its creation, we are armed in a certain way. But I see that there are still countries who thrive away a little bit. But there are positive results as well. I mean, look at the election results in Slovenia. I mean, he's away, so we have a positive result there as well. We all have hoped that in Hungary it would be the same. It's not, but there are positive results, and I think that that we should look at those positive results and try to multiply them and try to fix the problems that occur.
If I may just add one thing, because Karolina is not here, so she cannot respond. But I think her optimism was this liberal optimism, was this belief that we can actually manage the crisis. But I think also in what she said, she was saying, and I want to repeat it because I also believe that in September we will see many things happening. And I think September will be really crucial in Poland because the school will start, and many people, and I think especially from the middle class or lower middle class, they will see that the level of education is actually lower because there's 40 kids in the class. And I really believe that this will be the moment when many things may change. And this mixed with the doctors, with the queues to the doctors. And Carolina also sees it in the city hall. So experts estimate that 600,000 to 700,000 people from Ukraine who came now, they will stay, 600,000 to 700,000. Also experts say that this is absolute maximum that Poland can take in such a short time. And cities especially, they're very concerned. And also what she was saying, money is a big issue. And these social conflicts are already, they're not maybe visible. They are somewhere there in the internet, but they will be more and more visible. So we are really concerned about that. But I agree with everything that you said. Like there will be more and more of that. There will be climate issues that we will see, and food and the prices, and there will be more questions asking when people will be asking themselves, what's there for me? Like, why is everything for them? And this is something we have to be prepared. And I cannot stress more that right now in Poland, the work is done by the NGOs, by informal groups of citizens, and by local government. What the government is doing is definitely not planning any systematic help. There is no long-term thinking, and this is something that I personally am terrified by that, because we have 1.5 million people who came fleeing the war, and the government has no system. And cities and people will not manage this crisis. We need a good functioning government, and we do not have that in Europe. And under normal circumstances, I would also say we need European Union, but this government is not cooperating with the European Union. So they're not doing stuff. So this is something that is my big fear. And we as liberals, we really need to look for solutions. And this is it maybe for now, because I can see there are more questions.
Yes, and one position is the political in the countries, because I think it's connected the European action and the state actions with the refugees. I see the liberal values and the possibility to the liberal action in the governments is to promote the equality opportunities, and it's not possible in the education position and health and the housing. I think it's the pillar of the equality opportunities. I think it's very important to prepare to change. Is necessary because the situation is different, the war is different, and the position, but it's not respect the human rights. Is the children don't have the equality opportunities in the education, that is not have the possibility in housing, and it's not possible. I think the reflection is what is connected the European political union and the states to the responsibility, common responsibility to respond the necessary in the equality opportunities of the refugees and the other migrants.
Thank you so much. There's a question there.
Hello. Not really a question, some comment.
A comment.
I'm a journalist as well, but I'm an MEP from Greece. So I think we should be happy and we should celebrate in a sense, because up to now we have been successful. Maybe things will change. Maybe in September the situation become critical. But I'm sure that Putin has in mind to use massive migration and refugees in terms of the conflict, and he failed to do so. I mean, there are other issues on which, as Europeans, we are divided, the energy issue. But for the time being, we are not divided on the migration issue and the refugee issue. And this is a big success of all of us. And coming from Greece, I have to, because, he has the mentality of hybrid war, Putin, and he failed to take advantage of this particular issue. And I was surprised because even in the French elections, the extreme right wing tried to take advantage of the situation, and then it had to change its position because the people didn't follow. The French are not, in general, are not welcoming a lot of refugees and migrants, but they made an exception as far as the situation in Ukraine is concerned. Now I have, after celebrating, I have to tell me my big concern. My big concern has to do with what will happen during the summer and during the next months in Greece and in the southern part of the European Union, because maybe Putin failed in his hybrid war, but Erdogan is preparing his own hybrid war that contains a lot of people being sent from Turkey to Greece and via Greece to the European Union. Of course, it's easy to blame Erdogan. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind that he has 4 million refugees from Syria in Turkey. So having 4 million in your country, you think it's rational that you can send or allow 200,000 or 300,000 to move to the next country. And he did this once in 2015-16. He tried to do it again in February 2020, allowing 200 people during one weekend. And of course in Greece, we respond to migrants and refugees not on a humanitarian basis, unfortunately, but we respond on the basis of a national threat, because all this is included in the difficult relations that we have with Turkey. So this is the big issue. What will happen during the summer? Because on the northern front, we are doing quite well. I understand, of course, the government of Poland, etc. But after all, even this government started communicating with Brussels one way or the other, the usual European way, compromises, etc. But we don't have, let's say, the united front between Hungary and Poland anymore. So there are a lot of positive aspects. But let's see what happens during the summer in southern European Union.
Thank you so much. And there is
I want just to react shortly on this, because this is a major concern that I share. And we see that there's a more and more direct route from Turkey to Italy, because they are using bigger ships. You know that they are using these plastic boats in order to bring them to the Greek islands. But now they are using bigger ships, and the Turkish coast guards seize them, and they do nothing. Perhaps they even send them, I don't know, but they go directly to Italy, to Sicily, and to the southern part. So I think that this hybrid threat, as you say, Georgios, is really happening, and will happen during the summer even more. This is possible. I don't know to what extent. What they will do, what this will be in numbers, but they use Italy more and more for one reason. The northern border of Italy is quite open to the rest of the European Union, because the Italians, sorry to the Italians, but they don't care about this. They say let them go, so they're happy when they're not in Italy. So Greece manages their borders to the direction of.
What should the Italian do, in your opinion?
No, they. I agree. They are in a bad situation.
What they should do?
They should. They should use the European facilities in order to distribute people that are coming to Italy. But I know that this is not an easy one. But clearly, at the moment, for example, let's be frank. The governments of the European Union, when it comes to redistribution of migrants, and we take people at the moment from Moldova, we take them from other spots, from Greece, from other countries, from Malta especially. And in the Council there's a discussion, because they are moving forward on the solidarity issue, there's a discussion about doing a common declaration of several countries saying, okay, we do it on a voluntary basis. France and Germany are in favor, two big chunks, that's good. But they need other countries agreeing to this. But there are countries like the Netherlands, like Sweden and others saying, we don't agree because Italy does not take his share. Because in Italy, the ratio per capita of migrants they take is not fulfilled in a certain way. So I think solidarity works only if everybody takes his part. And I don't want to blame Italy, to be very clear. I think that for a very, very long time, when a lot of migrants arrived through Italy via Lampedusa, and I've been to Caltanissetta on Sicily, and I've looked at it personally. The European countries have let Italy alone with this issue for a long time, and Spain as well. Now they're arriving via the Canary Islands, which was not the case some years ago. So I mean, there are new routes that are happening. But European solidarity works only if all the countries take part of it in a certain way. And this is important to say because if there are some countries not willing to participate in a solidarity system, the others will say, no, we don't do it neither. Because I mean, Germany and France, they say, okay, we do it on a voluntary basis, but you know very well what happens if it's only them. Then in the media, it's very quickly it will be written, why only we? Why don't the others don't take part in it? And so the numbers are low. And it's every time when we have a situation. I mean, we had the war in Libya. The people were relocated to Niger. UNHCR is doing their job. They identify the people that have to be relocated. We need, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 places. The pledges are made. And what happened? We have 500 places in the European Union. Because the member states say, if Germany takes 100, okay, me and, I don't know, in France will take 100 as well. If Germany takes 500, France perhaps will take 500 as well. But if Germany takes 100, the Netherlands, they will not take 100 neither. They will take a lower number. So we are always in this situation where the member states look at each other, and it's not a discussion about what do we want to achieve, but it's the first mover is the loser. And if we have this approach to such a problem, we don't solve it. So I think that we, in a certain way, have to change our mind on this. Sorry, that was too long.
Thank you so much. I think our time is off. So I'm really happy we had this discussion during the ALDE Party Congress, and I hope it's not the last one that we've had in this format, because this dialogue, this platform for dialogue between decision makers, policy makers, experts from Southern and Eastern Europe is really important, and I'm really happy that I can see here in the room active participants. I can see party leaders, I can see members of European Parliament from more than 3 countries. So I guess this debate will be continued, and we will be looking for the common liberal way. Definitely we know that this common liberal stance is possible, and it's based on human dignity and solidarity. So human dignity and solidarity first. And let us continue this conversation, and definitely let us continue this conversation in 1 hour during the reception, which will be the fantastic continuation. Thank you so much, Jan Christophersen and Sarah Jimenez.